let's transition over to this. So this happened right before we went on the air, and this is phenomenal. It's funny that we waited this long, but so much news has been happening in the markets over the last couple of days that I just wanted to push it here, especially because it also just came out. But this is very, very good for crypto. This is very, very, very good for Ripple. And it could be very, very good for PulseChain and Richard Hart here coming up in the future. So is it, what do you got? Is that the Ripple chart? Is it the XRP chart?
Yep.
I was curious about that. Okay.
When I looked earlier, it was like 51 cents. It hadn't done anything.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it's just boom in the last here. Let's look at the last let's look at the 15-minute.
Yeah. I'm gonna get a water refill. It's 2 steps away. I'll be right back. Keep talking.
Go for it. Go for it. Yeah. So right before we started, I was looking at the chart and I didn't see a whole lot of action. It looks like it's totally taken off in the meantime. So, but what he was getting to was apparently the courts have ruled in favor of XRP. I don't know the final ruling. I'm not sure. You can go ahead and take over on that because I don't know what the ruling even was. You mentioned it to me. So go ahead.
So it's literally, and this is an exaggeration or hyperbole or anything, it's the best possible outcome. I mean, unless there's some other dreamed up wet dream scenario, but this isn't a settlement. This isn't a here's what you're going to do or anything like that. The judge essentially 100% sided with Ripple XRP over the SEC. The case is over basically with prejudice. This is their decision. Again, it's not a settlement or anything. I think XRP is ordered to pay. I have to see the exact figure, but I mean, it's fractions of a fraction compared to what the SEC was trying to get from them. And basically it sets a precedent that like XRP did basically everything that you could possibly do wrong or be the closest thing to a security in crypto. And they just trounced the SEC from every single angle. And now the case is completely over and the judge has 100% sided with Ripple. So this is a really big deal. I happen to be scrolling Twitter and just kind of looking at some people's opinions of it. And Nuclear Herbs, obviously our favorite attorney or former attorney within the PulseChain ecosystem that lends a lot of advice when it comes to that dealing with the corrupt SEC. He had some thoughts right after the XRP thing broke, and I thought it was good to read those. So if you want to I did send it to you. You can put it up if you want or not. It's fine. But I'll go ahead and read what he said. He said the court in XRP just issued its final judgment. So again, not a settlement. This is a final judgment. XRP is fined $125 million, far less than the $2 billion sought by the SEC. Okay, so ridiculous. Like I said, again, a fraction. If you recall, the SEC alleged various types of securities violations occurred when Ripple sold XRP, and the court found them to be wrong on all of the institutional sales. There were no institutional sales of Hex, Pulse, or PulseX, so there's nothing to compare that reasoning directly to in Richard's case. Anyway, Ripple received $728 million for its institutional sales under written contracts for issuing XRP to those investors. That was the only category of sales that the court found to involve securities. Now Ripple is paying $125 million, which nets them a tidy profit of $603 million for this type of sales alone. They obviously get to keep everything from the programmatic and other sales of XRP, roughly another $1.36 billion. The SEC's PR team will spin this as a huge win because that's what they have to do to save face, which politics, I understand that. But if you or I allege a half dozen things against another party, won only one of those claims and got 1/16 of what we were asking for in damages at the end, I'm not sure we'd be thrilled about the outcome. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Ripple is barred from doing any more institutional sales of XRP, which it was never going to do anyway. So I guess technically the SEC won on that issue too. Pop the champagne, guys. It'll be interesting to see if and how this moves forward, or if the parties are just going to accept it and move on, which seems like the choice I'd heavily lean towards, regardless of which side I was on. Anyway, keep this in mind if Richard's case moves forward after the motion to dismiss is decided. Not only was the SEC almost entirely wrong on the law in Ripple, but the court saw their damages request and laughed at it. Anyway, 15 more days and we get to see all the briefing in Richard's case, so we have that to look forward to. So yeah, pretty good right up there. Yeah.
That's exciting. 15 more days. I could care less about Ripple, but I mean, it is a nice thing to to see, that the judges are starting to wake up to what the SEC is doing and say no, no, guys, you're not right here. The law says this, and you're saying something different. So, hopefully something again. What I think what we've always wanted in the beginning, or from the beginning anyway, was just to have them give clarity, right? Set some law, say things that you mean, and with intention, so that people can follow the rules. And if you do that, then you have something to enforce. But when you dodge questions and you don't answer things like a little bitch, then you're gonna have this, right? Is Ethereum a security? Well, we can't say it's a bunch of runaround. They won't answer questions. So again, that's what you get. And I think the judges are finally waking up to this. I'm happy for this. I thought, one of the first things I looked at, like I said, was the price, and it really hadn't done a whole lot. And it might have been like, I'm trying to see what time. What time did we start? 6:30.
Yeah.
So I guess it did run up a little bit earlier this morning.
Okay.
And I guess it started about 3:50 or something like that Eastern time. But yeah, it's kind of evened out. And this will be interesting to watch too. Will it continue to run, or are we going to get that sell off again where the last run up that kind of happened whenever there was good news, it sold right back off. So it'll be interesting to watch that.
A year ago, last summer, whenever XRP won the first stage of this, basically, that was the real big one that came out of nowhere. That it ran up, it did a 2x in a day and then retraced the entire move over the next few weeks. But now this is the nail in the coffin. I mean, this is pretty much it. And as Herbs also said in that about like what either side would do moving forward. I mean, if you're at the SEC at this point, like just go home. Like, obviously pretend that you won the case and everything like that, whatever you're going to do, but it's time to move on. I'm not sure I understand Beyond All's comment here, but how come you call it like the judge sided with XRP? XRP is fine. That means that the SEC suit was disregarding the amount of money they demanded. The SEC won. I think what you're trying to say is just the fact that they did have to pay a fine means the SEC won. But again, I mean, this is kind of like what Nuclear Herbs just said. I mean, I know you're not a baseball fan, Ewok, but the Chicago White Sox, I think, are on a 21-game losing streak right now. They're like 24-80 for the year. It's like they're the worst record in baseball, may end up with the worst regular season record of all time, but they've won 20 games out of like 105 so far. So, yeah, I mean, the SEC kind of won a couple aspects of this lawsuit, but like demonstrably lost compared to what they were asking for. And if that's kind of the negotiating thing. You come to the table asking for completely unrealistic horse shit and wanting all this money. And, you're never allowed, in Richard's case, like you're never allowed to talk about crypto again and all this other crap. You're kind of going to get the bare bones, especially if you just kind of throw a bunch of shit at the wall to see what sticks. But I don't really see overall, though, how you could look at this and think that the SEC won in any way. I mean, Ripple really made off totally fine and not a lot of harm. Really, what's done more harm to Ripple is the fact that the CEO and the leaders of the whole entity there have been dumping on investors' heads for years. That's really why, it's kind of a loser thing to be in. But anyway, yeah.
So I mean, they were looking to get $2 billion from them, and they only had to pay 125 million. So I would call that a pretty large win.
Yeah, I would too, especially, I mean, with how wealthy these guys are and stuff. And again, they've been dumping the tokens anyway, so they've been paying themselves, Yeah, I mean, it's a total win for them. And I mean, more so, though, I don't really care about this case, though, like you said. I mean, I don't care about it in a vacuum for Ripple's case. I care about it as a precedent for crypto. Obviously, we have invested interest literally in the Richard Hart case, but just for crypto in general. Like if XRP, who again, I mean, the way they went about things wasn't exactly the best way. And if there's anything in crypto that could be a security, it would probably be them. And they won this demonstrably. I mean, that's a great sign. I mean, here we are. We're talking about the Richard Hart case. I mean, we're talking about DeFi. And that does, you brought up what Herbs did about I think it's August 22nd. Yeah, 15 days for Richard's team's response to the SEC's response about the motion to dismiss. So,
Right.
correct me if I'm wrong. Will we be seeing any elements of that? I think maybe we heard we were going to. We didn't see the SEC's because there could potentially have been sensitive information on there that can't really be made public and stuff like
Well,
that.
from
So,
what I understand, that's not why it wasn't released. The judge
okay.
basically came right out and said, I'm not going to release the information until I have both sides, until it's complete. Then I will release it. So we know there were things in there that were, about some privacy, but it
Mhm.
had nothing to do with why it wasn't posted. Um, the judge basically said, I'm going to wait for both responses before anything gets put out there. So
That makes sense. I
yeah,
would want to too, honestly. So,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, why not? I would want to have both of them. So, yeah, overall, this Ripple thing, huge for crypto, definitely huge for the upcoming Richard Hart case and everything. But again, and Nuclear Herbs emphasized it in that tweet. If the motion to dismiss, if we go past that, even, I mean, if it all ends right there, I mean, we're good to go after
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah, but finesse, I agree. It's if XRP isn't a security, I don't know that really any token is. I mean, he says then neither is Apple. Um,
right.
but essentially, he's being facetious there. But
Still,
what token, like especially something that has no founder, has no headquarters, has no employees, has no a lot of things, right? Um, that's one of the things that makes a token a security when you have a centralized entity in charge of things making calls, um, and if XRP isn't, because it really defines a lot of all of that stuff, and they found it
mhm.
not to be, it's very good for the rest of everything essentially. So
Right. Right.